I respect his style, but it's not exciting. No. His style has worked for him, so you can't knock it. But you've got to land a few, give a few, work on the inside. The first rounds are always cagey, but by the fourth round, the fight has to get exciting. That Riddick Bowe Evander Holyfield style scrap. That Dana White Derek Chisora style scrap. You never know, but I don't see him fighting like that. Klitschko is very dominant at putting people on their back foot, on the edge of the ring. Even with Tyson Fury, a bigger and taller man, he had him moving. So sometimes you have to let him know that your presence is in the ring also. You could come out feinting, pushing him back, in the clinches, lean on him, or you could come out dancing like Fury did, or come out slipping shots. It will be interesting to see which style I bring to the table against Klitschko. I like to adapt to the fighter. Maybe I'll counter him. Maybe I'll move on the back foot. I haven't got a game plan. That's why I like shots thrown at me, because I figure them out. I'll hopefully figure out Klitschko as the rounds go on. Those are the words of IBF heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua. Pretty interesting stuff. He says he doesn't expect Klitschko to come out swinging, letting his hands go. He expects the same cautious Klitschko that we've always seen. Is it a good thing that Joshua is thinking this way? Should he be a bit more open-minded in terms of how he thinks Vladimir Klitschko may approach this fight? Because Klitschko has let his hands go in certain fights. If you go back a couple of years when he fought Mariusz Wach, he let his hands go a lot in that fight. Fairly early on, he was letting the heavy artillery fly. I think it comes down to how comfortable Klitschko feels. If he has an opponent in front of him who he doesn't feel much of a threat from and doesn't feel worried about what's coming back, then he often will let his hands go, or sometimes will let his hands go. Particularly after Manny Stewart died, he seemed to let his hands go more. And I think Mariusz Wach was so slow that he felt comfortable doing so. There have been many other fighters, don't get it twisted, who were not really offering anything in terms of a threat, in terms of punches landed at least, or punches thrown, but it's the perceived threat. Maybe they were getting into certain positions which made Vladimir Klitschko feel uncomfortable. Maybe they were in positions where Klitschko felt as though they could still land counters. Maybe he felt their speed in the ring and thought, you know what, I'm not going to let my hands go in this particular position because he could potentially counter me. He's got the speed to do it. Just because he's not doing it don't mean he won't do it. He's not yet that tired. I'm looking at his body language. He still seems to have energy. So let me stay cautious. But when he's in with somebody, again, like a Mariusz Wach or a Pianeta or any of these guys, he's looking at them like, man, these guys are not fast enough to counter me. So when I get into these positions, I'm going to let the shots fly. I think that's what it is with Vladimir. So how will he match up against Anthony Joshua? Will he come out letting the shots fly? Or will he see enough speed and strength in Joshua to just pull the reins a little bit and be a bit cautious? I do think that Vladimir Klitschko is very confident of beating Joshua and that he does see him as too green and too inexperienced for this moment right here. That's the impression that I'm getting from Vladimir Klitschko, that he just don't think Joshua is ready. And that will give him a certain amount of confidence. Joshua certainly is not as experienced as Tyson Fury was when he fought Klitschko. Tyson Fury had been through plenty of 12-round fights, and he'd been through many situations, crisis situations in the ring. Tough fights, plenty of tough fights. So he was battle-hardened, and coming through crisis situations and tough fights and going 12 rounds multiple times, it does give you a certain level of confidence which you will be hard-pressed to get if you haven't been through those same experiences. Vladimir Klitschko knows this. He also knows that Anthony Joshua is not as slick as Tyson Fury. He's not as tall, his arms are not as long. It's very unlikely that Anthony Joshua would be able to successfully employ the same tactics that Tyson Fury employed. I don't think Anthony Joshua is as versatile as Fury. He certainly hasn't shown me that he is, either in his amateur career or in his professional career so far. What Joshua does well, he does very well. He's good in the middle of the ring or coming forward. He's quite good. Stalking you, getting into position, landing quick counters. That is something which Anthony Joshua is maybe a little underrated with. That is his counter-punching ability. You go watch a lot of his knockouts, a lot of them come from counter-punches. Landing that right hand over the top of somebody's lazy left. So he's also good with the check left hooks as well. So a lot of his knockouts come from counter-punches. His counter-punching ability is underrated. Counter-punching on the front foot as well. So what he does good, he does very, very good. Will it be enough to defeat Klitschko? I don't know. Is he confident in himself, Anthony Joshua, of winning this fight? Because in the head-to-heads, he seemed a little nervous to me, a little uncomfortable. And Klitschko was seen far more assured of himself, looking at his body language. Again, that don't necessarily mean that Joshua's going to lose the fight, but confidence always helps. Having that inner self-belief. As long as you don't get overconfident and you don't underestimate your opponent, then it always helps. Particularly on a big occasion when the pressure is on. Now, some people have talked about, and I have watched Richard Dwyer's recent videos where he's strongly picking Klitschko to win the fight. And he says that Klitschko's performance against Tyson Fury, the fact that he threw so few punches was because of what Fury was doing. It wasn't because Klitschko shot or anything like that. That's the opinion of Richard Dwyer, somebody who I respect tremendously. But one thing he didn't talk about, which other people have, was the Bryant Jennings fight. Because he didn't look particularly impressive in the Jennings fight. That was the fight before fighting Fury. He wasn't really letting his hands go in the Jennings fight. Similar to the Fury fight, although not quite as bad. And I've talked about the Jennings fight several times. I certainly did a post-fight review. And my view on what happened in that Jennings fight was because Klitschko wasn't allowed to clinch Jennings and lean on him and drain him, he wasn't comfortable enough to let his hands go because Jennings' foot movement is quite fast. He moves around the ring quite well. He certainly has a certain level of physical strength. He's not as big as Klitschko, but he has a certain level of strength. And as extraordinary as some people may believe it to be, I honestly feel like the clinching aspect of Klitschko's game, when you take it away, when he feels like he needs the clinching, because certainly against Bryant Jennings, the guy was moving a lot and he couldn't quite get a handle on him. He couldn't quite get in a position to land his punches accurately on a consistent basis. So he wanted to slow Jennings down. The fact that they took that away from him, the holding and leaning, which is a big part of Klitschko's game when he wants to slow somebody down, is leaning on you to tire you out. When he took that away, he became so uncomfortable that he went into his shell. That is a mental weakness which Klitschko has, which he's always had. So it might not be a case of Klitschko being shot or over the hill, although being out the ring for as long as he will have been out the ring by the time he fights Joshua at that age is definitely not a good thing. But more than anything, the Jennings fight and the Fury fight, for me, exposed the mental weaknesses which Klitschko has always had. Can Joshua also expose those mental weaknesses? We'll see, particularly based on the Jennings fight. You look at that fight, did Klitschko look devastating to you? David Hayes said he's picking Anthony Joshua to win the fight because he thinks the referee won't allow Klitschko to hold. I'm not sure how successful Klitschko will be holding anyway because of the size of Joshua. Joshua is just as big as Klitschko, and he may be just as strong, maybe stronger with that youthful energy that you have at that particular age. We'll see. But again, look at the Jennings fight and you tell me, do you think that version of Klitschko, the one who fought Jennings, could beat Anthony Joshua? Because the referee is going to be similar. If Klitschko does start excessive holding, the referee is definitely going to get on Klitschko's case with the fight taking place in the UK and Joshua being a champion, not Klitschko. Klitschko won't be able to do excessive holding and try and wear Joshua out that way, if he's even capable of doing it from a physical point of view, because Joshua is so big and strong anyway. So, I don't know. I would urge, if Richard Dwyer, I know you subscribe to my channel, if you're watching this video, sir, I would urge you to revisit the Jennings fight. I know Jennings can do a lot of things that Anthony Joshua can't do. He's a smaller heavyweight, lighter on his feet, so on and so forth. Maybe a bit more crafty on the inside than Joshua, less stiff. But Joshua does a lot of things better than Jennings too. So, I don't know. When you think about that Jennings fight and then you think about Joshua, you can't help thinking that Joshua's actually got a good chance of beating Klitschko. I'm not saying I'm picking him, but I'm saying you look at that Jennings fight and you think, man, Joshua, if he was in there that night, Klitschko might have ended up on the canvas and stayed there. So, I don't know. It's a very, very interesting matchup, Joshua versus Klitschko. I can't wait for it. Will I even make a prediction or will I sit on the fence? I'm not even sure. I think Joshua has the physical capability to beat Klitschko, but the experience gap is vast. And Klitschko does have very, very good technique. He knows what he's doing in there. It's going to be a case of Joshua having to defeat Klitschko mentally before he defeats him physically. That's what I think. He has to defeat him mentally first before he can defeat him physically. Can he do it? I don't know. Anyway, let me know what you think about Joshua's comments here in terms of Klitschko not being particularly exciting and him not expecting Klitschko to come out firing. He's expecting a cautious Klitschko. Is that prudent or is that a mistake? Drop it all in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman, I'm out.